Hello, February. February is the border between winter and spring. Terri Guillemets, Reynard stood at the edge of the ancient woods, his paws sinking slightly into the heavy, wet snow. The air carried a different weight today, a softening of the crystalline bite that had defined the months before. He watched the mist rise from the valley, feeling the subtle pull of the earth as it prepared to wake. For Reynard, this was the month of the in-between, a time to stand still and listen to the silent gears of the seasons beginning to turn. February is the shortest month, but its days are often the longest to endure. Unknown, Reynard sat by the edge of the mirror-still pond, watching the ice give way to dark obsidian water. The patience of the fox is a quiet thing, a slow burning ember in the chest. He thought of the weeks of gray light and how they tested the resolve of every living thing. Yet in the stillness he found a peculiar beauty. The world was not dead, but merely holding its breath, waiting for the permission to exhale. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me lay an invincible summer. Albert Camus. As the wind howled through the skeletal branches of the oaks, Reynard found shelter beside a frozen waterfall. The ice hung like heavy glass drapery, beautiful yet rigid. He curled his tail around his nose, feeling the rhythmic thrum of his own heart. He realized that the cold was not an enemy to be defeated, but a canvas upon which his own internal warmth was most vibrantly painted. His spirit was a hearth that no blizzard could extinguish. February, when the days of winter seem endless and no earth-waking bird can yet be heard to sing. Edith Holden. Reynard pressed his ear to the gnarled bark of an old cedar, listening for the internal hum of the sap. The silence of February can be heavy, a blanket that muffles the heartbeat of the world. But he knew the secret. The roots were already dreaming. Deep beneath the frost line, life was calculating, measuring the temperature and preparing for the grand unveiling. He closed his eyes and dreamed with them. February is short and very cold, but the sun is stronger. Unknown, Reynard sat on a granite outcropping, tilting his head back to catch the pale yellow rays of the afternoon sun. Though the air was still sharp enough to freeze his whiskers, the sun possessed a new, piercing quality. It was a reminder that even the shortest, coldest chapters have a way of yielding to the light. He felt the heat soaking into his fur, a promise whispered from the heavens that the reign of the ice was nearing its end. The color of springtime is in the flowers. The color of winter is in the imagination. Terri Guillemets. Reynard gazed at the frost patterns on a low-hanging branch, seeing shapes of ferns and petals in the frozen water. While the world was currently a study in monochrome, his mind was busy painting the forest in shades of emerald and violet. He knew that the ability to envision the beauty yet to come was the greatest gift of the dormant season. Winter was not a void, but a workspace for the dreaming mind. Late February, and the world is mud and slush and the promise of something better. Anonymous. His paws were heavy with the weight of the thawing earth as he navigated the sloping hills. This was the messy part of transformation. The transition where beauty is hidden under a layer of brown and gray. Reynard didn't mind the mud. It was the scent of the future. It was the smell of minerals and damp moss, the fragrance of a world shedding its winter skin to reveal something tender and new. In February, there is everything to hope for and nothing to regret. Patience strong. Near the shelter of a fallen log, Reynard discovered a single snowdrop, its white head bowed against the lingering chill. It was a fragile thing, yet it possessed a strength that the tallest oak might envy. He sat before it in a moment of silent reverence. To bloom when the world is still cold is an act of defiance, a quiet rebellion that Reynard recognized in his own heart. February makes a bridge, and March breaks it. George Hebert. Reynard crossed the old stone arch that spanned the rushing creek. The water beneath was loud and chaotic, fueled by the melting runoff from the mountains. He paused at the highest point of the bridge. feeling the vibration of the water in his bones. He was the bridge, too, the link between the frozen past and the flowing future. He looked down at his reflection in the churning water, seeing a fox who had weathered the storm. There is always in February some one day, at least, when one smells the yet distant, but surely coming, summer. Gertrude Jekyll. The wind shifted to the south, carrying the scent of distant rain and warmed pine needles. Reynard stood tall on a rocky outcrop, his nose twitching as he catalogued the new arrivals in the air. It wasn't spring yet, not truly, but the message had been sent. The grip of winter was failing, and the fox let out a soft, sharp bark into the brightening sky, a greeting to the change he felt in his fur. February is a month of fingers crossed and eyes searching for the first signs of green. Therese Benzel. He found himself running through the meadow, his green scarf a streak of emerald against the retreating white. The patches of grass were larger today, a vibrant, mossy green that felt like velvet under his feet. Reynard felt a surge of energy, a restlessness that demanded movement. The time for the long sleep was over. The time for the long hunt, the long run, and the long light was almost here. The bitterest sky in February can still hold the brightest light of the coming dawn. Old proverb. Reynard sat on the hilltop as the sun crested the horizon, painting the world in shades of rose and gold. The shadows were no longer long and blue, but short and soft. He looked back at the dark woods one last time, honoring the quiet and the cold that had shaped him. Then he turned his face toward the warmth. "Hello, February," he whispered to the fading frost, "and thank you for the way."